Alright, we're reading a steam locomotive operation engine manual on Chapter 13, General Westinghouse Breaking Questions and Answers. Chapter 13, General Westinghouse Breaking Question and Answers. What is the purpose of the main reserve? If it is the purpose of storing volume of air in sufficiently high pressure to release the brakes to recharge the train pipe and auxiliaries. Question, is it essential for the reserve to be kept free of the water? The water accumulates in the main reserve to reduce the volume available to the storage of the air. Consequently, when the brakes are being released, the reserve is taxed to a great extent, that causing the longer time for it to be taken to the recharge the long train line. Throw extra work on the pump. Question, from where does the water found in the main reserve come? It is drawn in with the air from the atmosphere and is deposited when air cools. Question, what is defects would reduce the capacity of the pump? Restricted passages of the receiving valves from the discharge valves to the main reserve, air strain blocked up, receiving discharge valves and seats defective or the valves not having correct lift. Question, what are the defects of the steam end of the pump would cause the pump to be slow in operation? Badly worn valve, piston ring, sling valve, slide valve, and twist steam position with the reducing speed of the pump, the lack of the lubrication of the main stem valve from the boiler, and the governor steam valve restriction of the flow steam will also reduce the speed. Question, what could cause the pump to make irregular strokes? Receiving and discharging valves defective or broken. What could cause the pump to jiggle and dance? Usually the result of badly worn reverser valve or its seat. What could cause the pump to groan? Lack of lubrication, inferior oil to the main valve of the stem, air cylinder, a bent piston rod, or a piston glands being placed too tightly. What are the causes of the pump running hot? Excessive worn due to the leakage of defective air valves, air seats, worn piston rings, racing the pump, and correct lubrication and pumping working constantly against the high pressure. Question, what causes the pump to pound? The pumping begins loose to the foundation breaks, the air of the piston, the air pump being loose on the rod, badly worn air valves causing them too much lift and excessive lubrication. What examination should be made if the pump stopped? Check up with the lubricated with the steam and the air end of the examiner with the glands for the pump. Close the steam valve to allow the stem to the pump to condense, give the more oil through the lubricators. Then open the steam valve quickly. If the pump does not respond, close the stem valve. Shut off the lubricator. Take the cap out of the reversing valve of the chamber. Open the stem valve to note that whether a full flow of steam is reaching the pump. Close the steam valve again. Note that the condition of the reversing valve, whether the oil is present in the chamber. If not given the small amount of oil, replace the cap and again turn on the steam quickly. If there's no response, then main valve should be examined to note that the slide valve is broken or displaced. If the connection pin is to maintain a stem in jamming. Check up on the relief port with blockage on the outside end of the small piston. In the case of ease the back on the ends of the cover studs. Release any of the back pressure. Release the reversing rod may be bent, broken. The reversing plate on the main piston may be displaced. The nut may be off the bottom of the air piston, or a piece of the broken air valve may be under the piston, preventing the piston from completing stroke. What would be the effect of the pin valve port being blocked up? Main reserve pressure for the central chamber should not be passed on the top of the governor piston when the standard of the main reserve pressure where it was reached. Consequently, the piston stem valve would remain up in the open position, allowing the stem to pass through the piston pump, keeping it working until the main reserve pressure was almost equal to the boil pressure. If the pin with the passage was blocked, then how could the main reserve pressure be controlled? By operating the steam valve to maintain the main reserve of the pressure approximately 90 pounds per square inch. What would be the effect of the pin valve when stuck and then the opposite due to the damage of the dirt on the seat? It could cause the continuous escape of the air of the vent port, and the air could not be escaped fast enough that it would build up the pressure at the top of the governing piston, the force of the piston and the steam valve down and cutting off the steam of the pump. What should be done if the pin valve port remains open? Cut out the governor and blind the joining on the air pipe at the governing connection. Control the jump pump with the steam valve. What would occur if the strainer in the air pipe to the governor became blocked? The main reserve air could not enter the governor, and the pump would continue to work until the pressure was almost equal to the boiler pressure. Question, what action should be taken if the strainer becomes blocked? Control the block with the steam valve until the opportunity to clean and free the strainer present is itself. What should air escape from the vent port? Only when the main reserve pressure becomes slightly greater than the setting of the regulating spring visa 90-pound pressure. What should the effect of the drain pipe what would be the effect if the drain pipe attacked to the chamber under the governor piston and became clogged up and the steam leaked past the valve of the bushing into the chamber? The governor piston and steam valve could not be forced down and the pump would not stop and when working until the main reserve pressure is almost equal to the boiler pressure. Question: what would be the effect if the drain pipe attached to the chamber under the governor became clogged up and steam leaked in past the valve of the bushing into the chamber? By uncoupling the pipe at the governor connection, the pipe should be attended to when the locomotive returns to the box flat. What would be the effect if the vent port became blocked up? The pump would be very slowly and starting after once having stopped. Why? Because the main reserve pressure above the governor piston would also have to escape in the way of the leakage blast the governor piston to release the air from the chamber. How should the blocked vent port be remedied? Clean the port with a plug with very fine wire and kerosene. If there's not a successful slacking, blacken the plug and causing leakage of the air past the plug threads. All right, your number 4 brake valve. What would be the result of the pipe to blackhand on the gauge of the pipe of the equalizing reserve pipe? Air would escape the chamber on the top of the equalizing piston, the permitting of the train pipe pressure under the piston and the forcing it up, allowing the air to escape the path the discharge valve through the secondary exhaust and causing the brake to be applied. Question: how should a broken pipe of the gauge be remedied? If a pipe is broken between the T-piece and the gauge, blank the pipe of the gauge side of the T-piece. This will retain the pressure equalizing reserve. If not, in the chamber, the top equalizing piston surface, the reducing condyle would be made usually, but the back of the hand on the gauge would not register any pressure. Remove the box light, withdraw the locomotive on the traffic until the repair. How should the broken main reserve pipe to gauge should be remedied? Blind joint of the pipe of the main reserve connection. What would be the result if the pipe from the main reserve to the pump of the governor break? How would you overcome the defect? It would cause the leakage of the air from the broken pipe. The governor would not have control of the pump. Blind joint of the pump pipe of the main reserve and control the pump of the steam valve, returning the box flat. Withdraw the locomotives from the traffic under the repair. Question: what is the object equalizing feature of the brake valve? It prevents the driver from reducing the air drain directly to the train pipe. The main making servicing applications of the brake. The equalizing feature allows the train pipe the pressure with reduced in the secondary exhaust with a uniform rate, regardless of the length of the train. The flow of the air through the train pipe is gradually stopped with the gives the smoother braking air through the train. What is the object of the equalizing reservoir? To enlarge the space above the equalizing piston so that it provides sufficient air to the top of the equalizing piston from which the driver is able to draw when making surface reduction, at the same time equalizing the feature of the bathroom gradually by reducing and cutting off the escaping the train pipe pressure when making surface reductions. How should the test be made with the defecting equalizing piston? After charging the type of the train pipe with the standardized pressure of 70 pounds, placing the automatic brake valve in the lap position, open the train pipe with the cock on the front of the engine and the backhand of the gauge falls rapidly and indicates that after equalizing piston defective. The further test can be made with placing automatic brake valve handle in the surface position. If there is no discharge from the secondary exhaust occurs, then by the type of the equalizing reserve pressure drops 5 pounds. The piston would be effectively after making sure that the train pipe leakage is not excessive. How should the test be made leak with the equalizing reserve in connection? After changing the standard pressure, make the 5-pound surface reduction, not automatic brake valve handle in the lap position. If the discharge intermediately with the secondary exhaust indicates the leakage from the equalizing reserve, the connection into the brake valve gauge. Continuous discharge air occurs with the secondary exhaust if the brake valve is in the release position running position. What would be the cause? The discharge valve is seated damage or the dirt holding it off the seat. When making a surface reduction, does the secondary exhaust remain open longer and longer on long trains than on short trains? Yes. Why? Due to the great volume of the train pressure below, the equalizing piston have got rid of before equalizing the pressure. If for any reason the driver feels the brake being applied with the black hand on the gauge shows the reduction of the pressure, what should he do? He should immediately place the brake valve handle on the lap, allow the train to stop at certain station with the cause. If on the passenger train, he should avoid stopping on a bridge or a tunnel when passengers are likely to alight. How should the test may be made with the leaky rotary valve? Before starting the pump, the placing of the brake valve handle on the lap, the black hand on the gauge rising, there is no any leakage out of the main exhaust indicates the main leakage past the valve. How should the brake be worked on the rotary valve leaking? Before applying the brake, close the isolation cock. When the valve is required, reopen the isolating cock, return the box flat, withdraw the locomotive from the traffic until repaired. Question: how should the train pipe in the main reserve be tested for the leakage charge system? The standardized pipe with the association rotary valve equalizing piston are in good order. Then they make about a 15-pound surface reduction. Leave with the brake valve on the lap. The triples will not be in the lap position, closing the isolating cock and then putting on the brake valve in the full release. If the black hand falls quickly, indicates the amount of strain but the pipe leakage. The test may reserve leakage. The charge is 90-pound. Close the steam valve to the pump and also close the isolating cock. If the red hand on the gauge fails, it indicates the amount of leakage. What should be done in the event of the following failures? A. Broken equalizing pipe. B. Broken pipe at the main reserve to the pump governor. And C. A broken train pipe in the front of the engine. A blank pipe in the action of the brake valve of the body with the plug in the secondary exhaust. If the plug cannot be obtained, secure the 4 equalizing pistons down with the secondary exhaust. Do apply with the brake. Move the brake valve handle judiciously towards the emergency position. Judge the sounding of the escaping the air from the train pipe, making light reductions by guided by the sound and starting the guard against the stopping of the train pipe by abruptly. Broken pipe from the main reserve to the pump governor. Blank pipe with the main reserve connection. This cuts off the governor controlling the operation of the pump with the steam valve to avoid main reserve pressure rising above 90 pounds per square inch. And C. A broken train pipe in the front of the engine. Replace the broken pipe with the first union coupling. Remove the broken section. Replace it with the hose off the front of the engine. Securely dummy in the hose to make sure it is airtight. Failing this, driving wooden plug tightly into the broken pipe. This would avoid the total failure. In all cases, the locomotive is returned to the black flag until repaired. Question: what would be the effect of the leak? What would be if the effect of the leak in the auxiliary reserve? When the brake is applied, it will cause the equal pressure to drop below the pressure of the train pipe. The triple valve will be moved to release the position, allowing the brake to release. When the triple valve is the release position, the leak will be fed through the feed groove in the triple piston bushing, bringing about the conditions equivalent to the train line leak. Question: if the brake fails to apply, what may be the cause? This may be due to any one of the following causes: the auxiliary reserve not charged due to the brake being cut out with the feed grooves blocked up with defective triple piston rings, which will allow the air to pass the auxiliary reserve, which moving the triple. This moves likely to occur with the rear end of the long train. Triple nipple exhaust made up. Question: what test can be made with determining the triple piston rings are satisfactory? Applying the brake, then opening the release valve for a second. If the rings are in good order, the brakes should then release. Question: what would be the effect of any leaking graduating valve? When the surface reduction is made, the triple valve is the lap position flow of the air of the auxiliary to brake the cylinder will continue the auxiliary pressure with the train pipe. When the triple valve would be removed to release the position, brake would be released. Question: if the pin in the graduating valve should break, how would this affect the triple? There would be no effect of the releasing position when the train pipe of the reduction was made to apply with the brake of the triple piston would move and while the graduating valve would remain closed on its seat due to the broken pin, thus cutting off the auxiliary pressure to the brake cylinder. Consequently, there would be no application of the brake. What is the standard brake position travels on the engine and tenders? Engines are 2.5-inch minimum, maximum 3.5 inches when leaving the depot, and tenders 4.5 inches minimum, 7.5 inches 7 inches when leaving the depot. What will be the effect of the brake piston travels and it's too large? If the piston travels and it's too large, it will greatly reduction causing the equalizing reserve of the brake cylinder pressure to equalize when equalizing the pressure is low, brought in by the auxiliary pressure, expanding the large spacing, result in loss of the brake pipe. When the valve of the brake cylinder is increased due to the long piston travel, that means the less of the pressure obtained with the brake pipe pressure piston, and given the reduction that would be in the case of if the travel were shorter. Alright, what is the dangerous practice of applying the release of the brakes repeatedly without fully charging the auxiliary? Each time the brake is applied with the air, with the auxiliary passes to the brake cylinder, thus reducing the pressure. The release of the brake to the triple valve is moved to the release position in which the auxiliary reserve is charged. Should the further application be made with the auxiliary fully recharged with the low pressure auxiliary to the second application, the heavier the train pipe, the reduction will require the applicable apply the brakes. If the application continued with seducing, the reductions would have been made to the heavier applier to the brake. Auxiliary reserves will apply, become low, and control the brakes will loss. Alright, how long does it take to change the auxiliary reserve? It would take 70 seconds to build up to 70 pounds per square inch. Auxiliary reserve is equal to 1 pound per second that provides the standard train pipe pressure would available to the triple piston. Alright, what are the feed grooves? They're not much made longer so that the permitted auxiliary reserves to be charged flat. The feed grooves were made too large. The heavy reduction of the train pressure would have to be made to apply with the brakes. The light reduction would be made. The air for the auxiliary reserve would flow through the feed grooves and the train pipe without moving the triple piston. Furthermore, on the release of the brakes, the long train with the train pressure after forcing the leading triples into release position would either fire on the auxiliary reserve so quickly that the increased pressure would not reach the rear of the train would fail to release the brakes on the portion of the train. Alright, how would it be known if the Westinghouse tap was closed between the engine and the first vehicle? By observing the strength of the duration of the train pipe exhaust when applying the brake, the exhaust of the air is proportional to the length of the train. Should the cock be closed, the equalizing piston would promptly lift, but instead of the air discharging between the normal duration, it would quickly weaken or cease. When it's necessary to raise the train pressure pipe to 90 pounds with an M3 feed valve, how will this be carried out? Place the automatic brake valve in the running position. Chalk mark adjusting screw in casing. Then turn the adjusting screw upwards 3/4 of the turn when for 20 pounds extra pressure is indicated with the black hand on the small gauge. Alright, Annex A figures and diagrams.